About a year and a half ago, I switched from my primary shooter being a Canon 5D Mark IV to a Panasonic S5II. This was a big change. I knew I was ready to get into the world of mirrorless cameras, so I thought I was going to upgrade to something like a Canon R6. That's kind of the direction I thought I would be going, but after waiting a while and doing some research, I felt that the S5II more fit what I was really wanting from a camera. So in this video, I'm going to tell you why I decided to make the switch from Canon to LUMIX, some of the things I love about the S5II, but also some of the things that I haven't really liked and why I think pretty soon I'm going to be switching back to Canon. Let's start by going over a little bit of my camera history. My very first camera was a Canon 7D. I had that for a little less than a year and I loved that camera. It was a great camera. I learned a lot on it, but pretty soon I was ready to upgrade to something full frame. So I upgraded from the 7D to a Canon 6D. And I loved that camera. I used the Canon 6D for years, and some of my all-time favorite photos were taken on that camera. It's an amazing camera. But when I was ready to upgrade from that, I ended up getting a Canon 5D Mark IV. And I got the Canon 5D Mark IV for a very specific reason. See, at the end of that year when I bought the camera, I was supposed to go on a 2-week trip to Nepal. And I really wanted a camera that was high quality, could get me great images, but also was durable and I could trust in a more rugged environment. So though I was kind of ready to switch to mirrorless, I wanted a camera that I knew would survive those more rough conditions, so I decided to go with a 5D Mark IV, which I felt I could trust the reliability and durability of a little better than a mirrorless camera. Now unfortunately, some stuff happened and I wasn't able to go on that trip, and so kind of the reason I got the 5D Mark IV didn't really make as much sense anymore because it still lacked some video features I was wanting. So I decided I wanted to upgrade to a mirrorless camera. I only had that 5D Mark IV for probably less than 6 months before I decided to upgrade. And I was originally looking at getting a Canon R6. It kind of had all the stuff that I wanted. It had lots of great features, good autofocus, pretty good video specs. But there was one thing that was really holding me back from getting the Canon R6. Well, one thing was that it was a little pricey. It still was upwards of close to $2,000, and that was a little more than I ideally was wanting to spend at the time. But I think the main reason I just couldn't consider the R6 realistically was that it had a 30-minute record limit in video. And that really bothered me. You see, my dad runs a nonprofit organization and they have meetings that every once in a while he wants me to help out by recording these meetings that sometimes go 45 minutes or an hour long. It just would be really inconvenient to have a camera that I'd have to restart shooting video on, and I just didn't want to have to deal with that record limit. So I wanted to look into cameras that didn't have a record limit. And basically I had a couple options in the Sony world, maybe in the Nikon world, but kind of what I landed on was the best option for me was the Panasonic S5II because it had good advanced autofocus, much better than the Panasonics of the past because it got phase detect autofocus. It had amazing video specifications, V-Log, which I heard so many good things about V-Log and so many good things about color grading, and the video on this camera just looks incredible. I just love everything that I shoot on the S5II. The colors are great, the editability is great, the low light is great. It is amazing and it has no record limit, and for those reasons, I felt that it was the best camera for me. Also, you can adapt Canon EF lenses onto the S5II with the Sigma MC21 adapter. And I found that this actually works pretty well. Now, you do get some reduced speed in autofocus. I have had issues tracking moving subjects like very quickly with that adapter, but for basic portraits, video work, I could take all my old EF lenses, throw them on the S5II, and they work really well. And the autofocus is accurate, the autofocus is smooth, it doesn't have any weird kind of effects that would come from an adapted lens. It's just everything works great, again, except for kind of fast moving subjects struggle a little bit on that adapted onto this camera. But it was very rare that I was shooting fast moving subjects, and most of my work was portraits, was events, was video, and I got a couple native lenses. I have a 20-60 kit lens that I'm shooting on right now, and I have an 85-1.8 that I do more of my portrait work on, and those focus a lot faster. And honestly, the S5II was everything I could have ever asked for, and I loved the camera. But just recently, I started to make more of these videos, and I started to discover something. Recently, I made 2 separate reviews. One was of this Canon 50D, and the other one was this Canon 1DX. I kind of wanted to explore some cheaper, older Canon DSLRs and really enjoyed using these cameras. Now, of course, these cameras are significantly worse than my S5II. They're a lot older, they're a lot cheaper. One thing I realized using these cameras was that they felt so good in the hands. I had forgotten how wonderful old school DSLRs felt in my hands, especially because I have big hands, and I just find that they feel so much better to carry around for long periods of time. Now, the Panasonic camera doesn't feel bad in my hands. It is decently comfortable enough, but I was kind of missing that old-fashioned, more chunky feel, and that's something that the Canon mirrorless cameras, based on what I've heard, are a little bit better at. They retain a little bit of a bigger, more chunky grip that I think I would find a little bit more comfortable. Also, I started to run into some reliability issues with my Panasonic camera. Not necessarily that it has stopped working, everything tends to work okay, but there's elements like the rubber on the grip has started to kind of peel off, the eye cup has kind of gotten damaged and is starting to peel off, and I can just tell that it's like not holding up super well in durability over time. And I've kind of gotten these really old DSLRs that, I mean, look at this 1DX, it's completely, paint torn off, scratched up like crazy, yet at the same time, everything feels like it's still held together incredibly well. It's only really cosmetic issues that this camera has, and everything else looks great. So I kind of was missing some of that reliability that I think that the Panasonic cameras kind of lack compared to some of the more modern Canon cameras have. I think that the Canon cameras take their design a little bit more based on these older DSLRs, and the more modern mirrorless cameras sometimes feel a little cheaper, and I'm starting to notice that with my camera. But there's one main reason that I think I'm ready to move away from the LUMIX system, and that is I really recently got into wildlife photography. And the LUMIX system is just not really set up for this. See, I just recently bought this lens, the Canon 400mm 5.6, and this lens can technically adapt to my camera, and I've used it, and I've used the Animal IAF in the S5II, and it works. And I've still gotten some really good photos with this setup, but I can tell that it really struggles to focus with a lens like this. It's slow, it is kind of inaccurate sometimes it nails on the eye, sometimes it drifts, and it's just not really an ideal experience using older EF long lenses like this on the Panasonic camera adapted. And I've heard that you get much more success using older EF lenses like this adapted onto modern Canon mirrorless cameras. And a lot of the issues I had with those Canon cameras are starting to get resolved now. For example, the R6 Mark II and a lot of the other newer mirrorless cameras from Canon no longer have the record limit. Additionally, they're starting to introduce C-Log 3 and C-Log 2 into these newer mirrorless cameras to add better color grading and more dynamic range that I would have been missing on an older Canon camera. And over time, I feel like the issues I had with the Canon mirrorless cameras are starting to go away, but I'm coming up with new issues with the Panasonic system. Now, as I said, the video quality coming out of my S5II is amazing. I have no complaints. I don't care too much about the 4K 60 crop because almost all my 4K 60 is done as B-roll, and having a APS-C crop isn't that big of a deal for me. And if it was just for the basic video features and even the basic photo features, because I find the sensors great, low light performance is great, has some really cool features like handheld pixel shift where you can get a 96 megapixel image handheld. It's just got some amazing technical features at such a reasonable price. But I think the more I get into doing adventure, the more I get into doing nature and wildlife, where I want something more durable, with better autofocus, it's just falling short a little bit of what I'm wanting. And for that reason, I think I'm about ready to move back to Canon. Now you might be wondering, what about Sony? Sony's the big talk of the town right now because it has amazing autofocus, a huge lens selection. For me, I think Sony cameras are great. I've used them multiple times in the past, but I just find they're not for me. I don't really enjoy using them. They don't feel good in my hands. The menu system is complex. It just isn't as enjoyable of an experience for me to use as a Canon camera. And I think that part of the fun of me taking photos is enjoying the experience. And I think if I want to truly have the most fun out of the experience, I think I need to switch back to Canon. I don't think I'm going to get rid of my S5II anytime soon because I still love using it for video, and using it for my YouTube channel has been honestly an amazing experience. But As I do more in wildlife and nature, I don't think long term it's the right camera for me. If you have any thoughts, please let me know in the comments below if you think that I'm making a mistake, if there's other cameras I should consider, and I just really want you to help me on my journey of finding the right camera for me as I explore these new kinds of photography. Thanks for tuning in to this really short video of me just talking through my thoughts on the Canon versus the LUMIX system, and like I said, tell me your thoughts in the comments below, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video.